Alright, real quick, I bet you guys guessed this game was canceled, but no, it's not. Yeah, woo. Now, I've actually made a lot of progress back when this game was actually in active development before it went on hiatus. I made a lot of progress that I just never made a devlog about. So yeah, I guess we're showing that off in this video. As well as new content I've added recently, which there's not too much of. But anyway. Now, down through this path, down below where you fought FRM. FRM's health has been decreased, by the way, but down in this path we have the intro to the graveyard area, in which you will fight the first graveyard area boss. I'm going to add a few rooms in between the bed and the boss, just because, but as of now, there's just the boss, which is an insane Bane, the Gravedigger, who is a reference to, obviously, Bane from the Four Fats games, Maximus 2 specifically. I was given permission to do this by them. I asked them, and they were like, yeah, you can do it, I guess, because why not? Which, that tracks, but whatever. The reason I asked that is because From the Waste is a fan game, with literally no connection to FF stuff in general. It'd be different if this was a fan game, but it's not. Anyway, Gravedigger's got 3 attacks, the skull bounce thing, the spray shot, and then the shooting in random directions thing. He has about 70 health. And yeah, I have showed this guy off on the channel before, as there's a video dedicated to this, but I've never talked about it in a devlog before. In terms of boss structure, I think this is actually one of the better waste bosses, but whatever. And he drops the Fleshhound King head, which is the 4th weapon of the game. Now, this weapon's been in the game for a while, it just hasn't had a dedicated place to get it. It's equipped with the 4th button, and essentially, it's the flamethrower weapon of the game. It's got limited reach, but in terms of pure DPS, it's about twice as good as the revolver. So, yeah. The saw blade's also better than revolver. I'm going to default back to the revolver for the vast majority of these videos, just because it's the most satisfying weapon to use, at least for me personally. But from a mathematical perspective, the Fleshhound King head is very good. It's also very good for fighting melee enemies that are in, close range, obviously. Fighting enemies with ranged weapons is not a good idea, because if you're that close to them, it's much harder to avoid their projectiles when they make them. Anyway, I'm going to go into this next room here, and we're going to graze past whatever that is. Now, jumping into showing off more stuff that I haven't included in a devlog yet. A lot of the stuff you're about to see is stuff that people over on the Discord server have already seen, and stuff I've posted there, and unlisted videos, but here we go. Tailtaker time. Here's the Tailtaker cutscene. You can read it and pause it if you wish. And there's the Tailtaker cutscene. Now, walking over to Tailtaker and pressing space, you get taken to the journal menu. Tailtaker's the guy who canonically writes the journals in the Waste games now. This is technically his first appearance, but his first appearance publicly on the channel would have been Hollow Waste 2, as I made a commentary video about that before I made this video, which is his first appearance in a devlog. This guy existed in this game before Hollow Waste 2 was finished, but that's technically his first public appearance in anything. Now, every other appearance Tailtaker has made in anything has been privated on a private video or unlisted video on this channel, or something I showed off over on Discord, which is kind of public in a way, I guess. But whatever. Now, there's 3 categories. Friends, which is Froth and the NPCs. Foes, which are regular enemies. And Fiends, which are the bosses. Currently, there are only 5 journal entries. I'll show off 6 journal entries. I'll show off all of them. Friends, there's Froth's journal entry. Again, all of these are written from the perspective of Tailtaker, just like in Hollow Waste 2. There's Tailtaker's entry about himself. There's Tailtaker's entry about the Esh. There's Tailtaker's entry about Fink. Now, lore-wise, at some point, each game was going to have its own way of showing off the journal entries. Like in Waste'em, Satch was going to be the journal entry guy, but then I decided from a lore perspective, Tailtaker made more sense to be the reoccurring one, considering his whole deal is asking literally everyone about the stories they have to tell. So it makes sense for him to be everywhere. So he is everywhere now. Anyway. Now onto the upper section of the desert, which has been completed for a while. You already know about it if you're over on the Discord server, but whatever. Now the Eshes have been nerfed a little bit. They have one fewer hit point. The Saw, Pierce, ooh. These are the Hunts. They have no death animation. They're essentially just better growths. They're faster. They take an extra hit point. Essentially what the Grips were in Hollow Waste 2. But again, they predate the Grips. Every Waste game has a faster growth equivalent. Hollow Waste had the Melee Raiders. Hollow Waste 2 had the Grips. Waste'em had the Crocos. And this game has the Hunts. Out of those, my favorites, probably the Croco, that or the Grip. I like both of those quite a bit. This is Bubba Fathead. Bubba Fathead does a ground pound. And then AoE of projectiles. Well, not AoE, but projectiles in every direction. He takes about 8 hits to kill. Whatever. Elite Raiders have also been nerfed. Pretty much every enemy except the Growth has decreased in HP. The Growth and the Hunt remain the same, but you wouldn't know that because this is the first time I'm acknowledging the Hunts publicly. The reason I'm doing this is to make the gameplay faster. Hollow Waste 2 is easily the fastest Waste game from like a progression standpoint. You move the slowest out of every Waste game, but every enemy dies the fastest. So like, it's the fastest Waste game overall, considering enemy health is the main thing that delayed progression in the previous games. Anyway, time for another boss that people will have already seen if they're over on the Discord server. Cutscene time. Now, this is the Raid Cruncher, a stationary boss. Shooting him does decrease his health, but he doesn't flash because this is not the intended way to kill him. Whenever he fires his gun, he fires in a random direction. Every once in a while, he will summon a clanker. And whenever his heart's exposed, you shoot it to do 20 times the normal damage. Raid Cruncher has the most health of any boss in the series because the intended way of killing him is not just by shooting him normally. It's by shooting his heart whenever it's exposed during that attack. You can't actually get a hit on the heart when he's sitting normally, I guess. The Saw Blade obviously does the most damage, which is 60. And no death animation. Going over to here, you initiate another cutscene with an NPC named Knots. And what Notch does is after you unlock him, he'll just appear randomly, and you can touch him to refill to full health. This does not count as a checkpoint. He will just now randomly show up in between areas, just because. Now, going left from the area that, essentially the hub room, oh yeah, Knots appears here now in the hub along with Tailtaker. Any NPC you meet will probably come back here at some point and just exist in this space. Also, Knots has a journal entry. Not every enemy has a journal entry yet, not every boss has a journal entry yet. The dudes I've given journal entries is kind of arbitrary, but whatever. Knots being there is kind of worthless, but anyway, if we go back through the prison area, quote-unquote, there was at the near the beginning of the game, there is a saw crate that you can break with the saw now that you've beaten FRM. Now this area up here is not finished. It is very unfinished, in fact. But there is stuff to do up here. All of this is content I've added since the game has continued development. which was like 2 days ago, I guess, 2 or 3 days ago. I'm gonna add at least one new enemy type up in this area, but as of now, it's the same enemies that the regular prison area has, with a couple elite raiders mixed in, because boss ahead. Time to show off a boss I've technically revealed on the channel before, but his fight did not exist until like yesterday. It's a very simple fight, considering this guy could be the third boss depending on the order of operations you choose to go. But whatever. The order of operations you choose to take. This is Gutter. Gutter shoots constantly until he starts an attack. He'll shoot perpetually. It's part of his animation. Once he hits that frame of his animation, he'll shoot. He has one-ish attack and another state where he speeds up. Once he goes back to normal, he'll start shooting again as usual. Again, this is a very simple boss. He has like 80 health, which is the most in the game currently. Bane has 70, but that's still not a lot. For reference, Frink from Hollow Waste 1 had like 100 to 150. I don't remember which, but whatever. And considering you can come back and fight this guy when you have more powerful weapons, yeah. Obviously that spread move is his other move, but since you can come back and fight this guy once you have more powerful weapons, yeah. You can kind of just eat through his health with the Fleshhound Head. Especially whenever he's doing this attack. You don't really want to use the Fleshhound Head too often while he's in his normal state, because you don't know when he's about to start doing his spread. But even then, you can get pretty far away from it pretty quickly, where he's quite slow. Again, this could be the third boss the player fights, or the fifth as of now. Anyway, he drops no weapon. Later on, him and Raid Cruncher will both drop keys. Each area will have this thing called a key boss. Once you beat the key boss of all four major areas, you can fight the final boss. That's how this game's progression is going to work. Raid Cruncher's the key boss of the desert/beach area, and Gutter is the key boss of the prison area. I'm going to extend the prison area a little bit so there's more rooms in between the regular prison and Gutter section of the prison, but whatever. Currently, this down here just takes you back to the hub thing, and then this takes you back to where you fought Fink. I'm going to obviously add a room after Gutter that will have a new NPC, presumably an NPC that lets you teleport around, probably. We'll see. That's the current idea. But anyway, going over and talking to Tailtaker, you can see there is an entry for Gutter. And that's really all I have to show off in this devlog. But whatever. Game is gaming, I guess.